This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Hello and welcome to episode 129 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be joined today by my guest, Tayler Cusick Hollman. She is the owner of TAYLRD Media Designs and the co-founder of Sourced Co. Today, we're mostly going to focus on her new business that she's the co-founder of called Sourced Co. And we are diving into all of the strategies Tayler has used along with her co-founders of that company to build a business from the ground up in the wedding industry. I love this episode because even if you've been in business for multiple years, or if you are just starting out, this is good for all of us because sometimes when we're new in business, we feel like growing our business is unattainable and maybe you have a lot going on, and I know you do, or the opposite. And you've been in business for a long time, but you feel like you might be stuck in a rut and maybe you're slogging through just, the emotions. This might give you some great ideas. We specifically talk about how to use a PR list. We talk about SEO. We kind of just run the gamut because we know, right, as entrepreneurs that when we start a business, we are everything. We're the chief cook and bottle washer. So Tayler is really walking us step by step, and she's so open and honest about what has worked, what didn't work, the struggles, and I'm looking forward to you hearing from her. If you recognize her name, it's because she was on the podcast back in, it must have been 2017 when she was still working at Aisle Planner, which is a great company. If you haven't heard of Aisle Planner, it's a CRM system. I know that they are constantly getting new tools. It's mostly for planners, I think, as a wedding venue owner, but multiple people use it. So anyway, she used to work for Aisle Planner along with her partner in crime at the time, Catherine Oyer, who has also since moved on from Aisle Planner, but they came on the show together and it was so much fun. So she hasn't been back on the show for about 2 years and she's started this new business. So wanted to bring her back on to talk about what is it like to go from having uber success at Aisle Planner and kind of being an in-house just marketing guru and content creator to starting your own company where you're responsible for everything. So she gives us all the goods. Let me tell you a little bit about her. As I mentioned, she is the owner of TAYLRD Media Designs, and she's the co-founder of Sourced Co. As a wedding industry marketing consultant, she works with wedding professionals to help them develop the skills, strategies, and assets they need to market their business and build their brands. And she was really doing that within Aisle Planner. I kind of want to have her back on the show just to talk about that. I think it was really, really neat how she did that. Before I get run away with how much I love Tayler, let's go to the show. Here is Tayler from Sourced Co. to tell us how she has been building a new business in the wedding industry from the ground up. Tayler, welcome back to She Creates Business.
Hello, Kinsey. I'm so thrilled to be back here.
I am as equally thrilled, probably more, as you know, from the fact that I could not stop talking to you offline. So sorry about that. I'm glad we're finally pressing play here so that everyone can be in on this conversation. If you are new to She Creates Business, you probably recognize Tayler. She was on the podcast, many episodes ago with her then kind of partner in crime, Catherine. They both worked at Aisle Planner, and that was a fun episode.
Yes, I miss my work wife. I wish she was sitting here next to me right now, but she's snuggling a new baby right now. So she'll get a pass.
So she's fine, right? Don't we all wish we were kind of snuggling a new baby? If you can hand it back to the mom.
100%.
And I'm a mom, so I can say that. Tayler, a lot has changed for you since the last time you were on the podcast. So as I was kind of mentioning to you, normally I would just tell the listeners, hey, go back to the episode, learn about Tayler, and then come back here. But actually, I want to dig into what you have been up to because things have changed. You're not with Aisle Planner anymore, and you're crushing it in the wedding industry still. So talk to us about you and a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Thank you so much for the compliment. I'm always trying to make sure that, all of the crazy ideas that I have in my head actually translate. And so it's really encouraging to hear people say things like that. But yeah, I decided to take the leap of faith that pretty much everyone that I've ever had the pleasure of working with has done themselves. And that's build a business, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had been with Aisle Planner for about 3.5 years, and I started as their marketing director and then did a little bit of a shift and was their editor-in-chief for about the last year I was there. And I had come up with this idea for a business, and I sat on it for a while, and then I said it out loud because I was ready to start manifesting it in front of the people who would become my business partners. And as soon as they heard it and got excited about it, I knew that at some point in my future, I was going to need to focus the majority of my energy on building that business. So in the fall of 2018, I took another hard left turn in my career. I've taken more than my fair share of those. And I decided to step away from Aisle Planner, which was a very hard decision to make because I was very lucky to be one of the first people on that team. And so that was a business. Yeah. I was, I think, I was hire number 3 or something like that. So, I was a part of building that business and I learned a ton there. So it was just, the world was ready for me to shake it up and do something new. So now I am back to being, fully self-employed, responsible for figuring out where all of, everything is going to come from, which is thrilling and challenging. And I love it to pieces. So I am really excited to really dive into what it's like to build a business from the ground up, because I've done it before with someone else's business, and now I'm here doing it with something that is mine. I have business partners, so it's ours, but it's different when it's yours. And I think that's a whole new perspective.
It feels different when it's yours. Do you feel a different connection?
Yes, I definitely do. I mean, the people who I've worked with in the past, I'm someone that goes full throttle on, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go full throttle on it. So even when I'm working on projects or with businesses that I have no ownership in, I still treat it as if I am one of the owners. But now that that's the reality and not just something that motivates me, it is different. I feel like at this point in time, the weight of responsibility is a lot more. And I think that that's one of the things that stresses most people out when they're in that phase where they're taking an idea and actually turning it into something real.
Yeah. And, it's almost something, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's something, I work for Acuity Scheduling. That's my 9 to 5. It feels there's not as much, I just had the word that I was going to use and now I can't remember, but, you can almost, it's hard to conceptualize that feeling between, even if you put, 110% into your work, which I know you did at Aisle Planner. We were just talking about that offline. But it's hard to even conceptualize that feeling. It's this very existential feeling when you work for someone else, when at the end of the day, it's not your business, versus when at the end of the day, you are truly responsible for everything. Even if you have partners, you're all equally responsible.
Yeah. I have yet to come up with a word to describe that differentiation, because there's just this weird, inexplicable, abstract sense that kind of can be overwhelming, right? Yes. Like that you, as a business owner, you need to be on all of the time, which that could parlay us down the whole boundaries conversation. We'll leave that for another day.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's this, I definitely have a drive now to always have my brain on, which is great because sometimes I come up with the weirdest ideas in the weirdest places at the most inopportune times when I have nothing to write it down. But yeah, I think that in the end, when you care about something that much, that's when I think that's kind of like what it boils down to is, how much much do you care about it, because how much of a part of you is it?
That's right. Yeah. I think one of the other reasons I'm excited about this chat is because, hang with us. Even if you've been in business already for 2, 3, 4 years or over a year, I know that the title might have been like, I don't really know if I want to listen to today's podcast episode because I am not building a business from the ground up. I disagree. I think we are always, you may not be building it from the ground because we've been in business for a couple of years or 5 or 10 years, but I think that there will always come a time and a season in our business where we need to shake things up and we need to look at the way we're doing things and we need fresh ideas. And I know Tayler is the person you need to listen to for that. So let's dive in to so we've talked about the leap from aisle planner, which that could be a whole other episode. Like, how did you decide to do that leap? Everyone's probably like, tell us. And we will later if we have time.
Yes.
Or we'll talk about it on another episode if you're someone who's considering leaving your full-time job as well. But we've talked about that before. So we'll move on. Talk to us about what your business is doing, what Source is doing, and then let's just dig in to step 1, step 2. You know how I like those steps and tips.
Yeah. Let's get linear with it.
Yeah.
Well, Sourced Co. is a styled stock photography business at its core. And we also now have a line of acrylic styling blocks. Mm-hmm. Now, those two things seem like totally unrelated, but at the core of what my business partners, it's Jen Wojcik from Jen Wojcik Photography, Christy Johnson from Tulaloon Events, and Cassie Templeman from Peanut Press Creative. At the core of what we wanted to build was something and somewhere that wedding and creative professionals could go to source things for their own business. So, we started with stock imagery because I kept seeing wedding professionals very specifically use stock photos that were styled and shot for general creatives on their Instagram feeds, on their websites. And I was like, that is not what a wedding planner's desk looks like. That is not what, a planner's desk, a photographer's desk, whomever's desk. So that was the impetus for the original concept. But in addition to creating the images that wedding professionals can use to, build their brand and really specifically market it, we also wanted to be a place where they could go to get the tools that they need to do their job well. And that's a phrase that I used to say a lot when I was at Aisle Planner. It's, when we're talking about streamlining your business and, CRM tools and all that kind of stuff. But in this space, we know that not everyone has a need for stock photography. I think that there's a point in time where everyone needs to lean a little bit on something that maybe they didn't think they needed. But we know that the wedding professionals in general are so unbelievably creative. And so we wanted to also give them something that they could use to rethink how they usually approach something. So in this case, it's a flat lay. Mm-hmm. And, if you've ever been to a photo shoot, you've seen people using rolls of washi tape or, stacks of business cards to, raise things. And so we ended up developing, a line of styling blocks for professionals to use too. So we really want to be this, we're just a little baby business. We launched a little over 8 months ago, but the goal is really to be a hub for wedding and creative professionals to get stuff that they need to do their job, do it well, do it quickly, all of those things.
And I love your acrylic styling blocks. Those are, I can't stop looking at the photos that have those in them. They're so beautiful.
I know, it was so funny. We originally were like, we're not having physical products. We don't want to deal with physical products. And all 4 of us had practically, signed away our firstborn children, saying we wouldn't do it. And then Cassie showed up with them and we were like, damn, I think we're doing physical products.
Right. You're like, okay, we'll do physical products.
Yeah. So,
well, if it's the right product, I feel like you get that feeling. I don't want to ship and do this and do that. But when the product comes along and yep, our audience needs this, then it's kind of like blows everything out the window.
Yeah. So you got to pivot. I mean, business, like rule of business number one, pivot when it makes sense. So we made a pivot pretty early on, but I mean, it was still in line with our overall mission, which was to give people things that they needed to do their jobs. So,
okay. So how did you get involved with 3 other women in this business, and what did that process look like creation wise, essentially creating Sourced Co, as far as, hashing out responsibilities and all of that? That's a lot. That's a lot of people to go through.
Yeah. So I have been very lucky over the course of what I've been working in the wedding industry for about 4 years now. Mm-hmm. And I have been very lucky to be connected with really just the most amazing people across the country. And I met all of them. They're all based in San Diego. Christy actually she's in upstate New York right now because her husband's in graduate school. But I met them just through the course of my everyday work. And so I've known all of them for at least 2 or 3 years now. And, those 3, they're a wedding photographer, a stationery designer, and a planner. And they produced a lot of weddings and events together. So they were like a well-oiled machine without me. Mm-hmm. And then I was like the scraggler coming in going like, hey guys, can I play with you? Can I come
I've got my ball too.
Yeah. But so there were, when you're building a business and looking for the right people to do it with, you really have to take a lot of time to just step back and watch, right? Because even if you have worked with someone on a single project or a handful of projects, businesses are about sustainability and longevity. And so, not to sound opportunistic on my end, but I mean, I love these 3 women. They're terribly talented. And I saw the kind of magic that they created between them and that they had created over the span of a few years. And so when it came time to, like I said, manifest what Sourced was going to be, there were no other people in my mind that I could have thought to do this with. So it was just one of those things that I think the world kind of put us together, and then it ended up being the right time and the right project for the 4 of us to come together and look at each other across the table and go, okay, yeah, let's do this. It's kind of crazy, but it sounds like so much fun. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So,
and your role is marketing, because you're not a planner or anything. Tell us your role.
No. So I am the person that wears all of the miscellaneous hats. So when we look at how the business is operating, those 3 they're the true creatives, right? So we all often joke that, my job is to herd the creative cats. They're in charge of, doing all of the conceptualization. They create the mood boards and the color palettes and the concepts. And then when it comes to developing the product, I come in and I play the role of producer. So I procure all of the things that the creatives need to do their art. When it comes to the business, because they're creatives and that's how their brains work, and mine is kind of maybe 75-30 between logical and creative. Mm-hmm. I wear the CEO, CFO, COO, CMO hats because I'm the one that and I like doing that. I like wearing a lot of hats, but I'm also the one that I just keep the machine going so that they can focus on creating beautiful product, right? Mm-hmm. They do it, and then my job is then to tell the entire world that they did this cool stuff. So that's how I think the 4 of us together really create a well-rounded team. I wish I had someone who could do some of the less sexy admin tasks that I'm in charge of. But, when we look at what we're most adept at, I was the one that needed to kind of fall on those swords. And I have no qualms about it, because watching them do what they do and then just being, like the noisemaker behind it really makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important point for anyone starting a business in general, but also most importantly in this specific topic, that's an important point to make with anyone starting a business that's a partnership or with another person in any capacity. I'm also in a partnership, and it is so important that you find people that you mesh with really well, but also what you just touched on, Tayler, I believe this strongly, is if there's another human in your life and you're exactly the same, that's not the person you want to get in business with. You have to have different talents and different skill sets so that you can fulfill different roles in the business. Because if you have the same skill set, you're both going to want to do the same thing, and there'll be all these other things over on the other side that no one's handling, because A, they're not your cup of tea, but also B, maybe you don't even know how to do them. So I think getting into business with people who, of course we have stuff in common with, of course we like them, but we have different skill sets. I think that's a really, really valuable point to anyone starting a partnership. Please consider that.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I wouldn't want to work with me, so I have to tip my hat.
Me neither.
I mean, I think there are a lot of great things about working with me, but I know that if I had to work with another, there are things I know about myself. I'm very strong-willed. I'm very opinionated. I work really fast.
Yes.
And, partnering myself up with a carbon copy of me would probably be pretty explosive. So,
So Tayler and Kinsey working together would be a disaster. We could be friends. I am all those things as well.
Okay. So then we'll just keep cheerleading each other on.
That's right.
I mean, it's part of picking the right person, right?
That's right.
You don't want to pick someone that you just know it's not going to work. So, but yeah, I mean, finding people who are complementary to your skill set is so important. So, because that's how you build a business. Not everyone can do all of the things.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about how you are growing a business. Speaking of, how are you growing this business? What were the things you put in place? So the other three gals, they're awesome. We love you if you're listening. We'll kind of table their roles right now. What are you doing to grow Sourced Co. and what did you do to put things in place? I know you are kind of like procuring the stuff that they need to do their job, but as far as growth strategy, what does that look like for you right now?
Yeah. So, probably like most people who are listening, I wouldn't really say that we have a marketing budget.
Absolutely.
When you're just starting out, it's all about bootstrapping things and only putting money into the things that you really have to put money into. So right now for us, that's almost exclusively surrounding things that have to do with like the infrastructure of our business. So some of the, to me, the low-hanging fruit in building a business when you don't have cash, it's all about breaking the internet and dominating the online space that you're trying to occupy. So before we launched and while we were building our website, I knew that I needed to take my SEO game to the next level, and I needed to really work with my business partners to create a website that was as beautiful as it was impactful for us. Because businesses nowadays live or die by the internet. Even if you have a brick and mortar store, most brick and mortars have, an online e-commerce site as well to complement things.
That's right.
So I spent quite a bit of time figuring out what our niche was. And then after I had, my initial concepts of, okay, these are the areas that I want our business to really show up in when it comes to, search engines. Then I have a dear friend who is an amazing SEO consultant, and she really knows the wedding industry.
Okay.
And shout out to Myrna Dermy.
Myrna.
So I brought her, I brought her on board for some consulting because I wanted to get all of the experts that I could to help us make sure that we were building the strongest foundation we could. So the SEO thing really then transcends and parlays into a digital marketing strategy, which I know we're going to talk all about content creation in another episode. So I'll just say having a very clear and concise and realistic digital marketing strategy was the next thing that I really focused on.
Okay.
And then because my previous work wife, Catherine, was a PR professional, a lot of her, like best practices and good habits really rubbed off on me. So shout out to Catherine Oyer for all of that stuff. I know. But so I also knew that before we launched and then, in the weeks leading up to launching a new business, that I also needed to have a PR plan of attack. So in addition to
this is all pre-work. I'm sorry. I just want to interrupt. This is all I just wanted to clarify for myself and for the listeners. You are doing this SEO work with Myrna, kind of this PR strategy, a la Catherine, pre-launching Sourced Co.
Yep.
So you are laying a foundation. Okay. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Keep going.
I mean, because the problem is that if you just because you build a website and you have this, even if it's the most beautiful thing on the planet, you put it out there and you start an Instagram feed, that doesn't mean that people are going to know a damn thing about it. So I wanted to make sure that we were starting to create buzz before launch day. And whether you're launching a new business or you're launching a new product or service, like that's how you start, the positive momentum that you want in order to make a big splash when you're ready for the full thing to make its debut. Mm-hmm. So, in addition to all of the marketing assets that we created as a team and, setting up the website, I had all of these PR documents that I was sending out to, like web designers and wedding industry PR professionals and just anyone that I thought would have an interest in this new concept and new business. So, and, in the end that paid off because on launch day, we had tons of organic mentions just from, not only our dear friends who were just the best cheerleaders that you could ever ask for, but the people that I had informed that on May 31st of 2018, we were launching this thing and they were all excited about it and decided to, post about it on their own social feeds, which is a huge help to someone who's trying to get something off the ground.
Mm-hmm. And so take me just a little bit through your PR process. You just made a list and sent a bunch of emails. Tell me a little bit more about that. Dig in a little there.
Yeah. So what I did is I created, I think in my Dropbox, it's just like, it's under launch assets and, PR sheets. But so I designed a document. First of all, I'm like, especially in the wedding industry, everything has to be as beautiful as you can make it. Like there's no room for something ugly. So take the time to hire designers if you don't have the skill set yourself. But I created a 2-page PDF that answered very basic questions. What is Sourced Co? What do we do? How do you get it? How much does it cost? So because when you're launching something that people don't have a baseline understanding of, right? Like stock photography in the wedding industry is not really something that people are that familiar with. So they know what stock photography is, they know what the wedding industry is, but connecting those two things, I wanted to make sure that on paper and then, parlaying off of that, the story that I could actually tell was locked down. So I created that PDF document. It also, the other part of that when we were sending it out is we curated, I think it was 10 images from the collections that we were launching with to send to these people before the website was even live. So, they were getting this document that spelled it out, what it is, what we do, how to get it. And then we sent them samples of our work so that, the likelihood that they could wrap their heads around this concept was pretty high. And then when it came to developing this list of contacts that we were going to send these things to, the four of us sat down and, I created a list. I created the list in Aisle Planner because I still do most of my project management in my schools. Hey, Aisle Planner plug. I used the guest list tool, and everyone put in the biggest named anyone in the wedding industry that they had a relationship with. So that was planners and photographers. So we had a pretty good list of that. And then I had gone and, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier, I had done a bunch of research on the ancillary professionals that would have an interest in stock photography. So web designers, definitely, because they need resources for their client work. Who else did I include in there? Copywriters, social media managers, PR professionals, marketing consultants. And so we just amassed this list. And then in the 2 weeks leading up to launch, we divided it, based on who had the strongest relationship with the person, because avoiding a cold email is always a good thing.
Sure.
So we divided and conquered, and we just blasted these things out so that, like I said, everyone knew what Sourced Co was before it was actually released into the wild.
And what I like about what you're saying is I challenge anyone listening to this episode right now. I almost guarantee they haven't done this. I certainly have not. And it's never too late. Maybe we have a big event coming up. Maybe we have, think of something. One of the other things I like about what you're saying is that you try to avoid cold emails. So yes, there are 4 of you, so you could kind of naturally go out to your network. But you know what? Even if you're listening to this and you've been in business for a while, your network's even bigger than somebody who just started in the industry randomly. But I think if you have something important coming up, even if you don't, this is such a phenomenal strategy that could build such a hardcore foundation. And what great practice to get involved with PR professionals, because there's still value there that I think we forget about. It's not, okay, I'll give everyone like an Instagram square to post on my launch day or whatever, you know, it's not, anyway, I'm kind of just going off on a tangent. I just think that what an awesome thing for all of us to do. How can we incorporate this into our business? I'm even like my wheels are turning.
That's fantastic. I mean, PR, I think I really didn't know much about PR until I worked closely with Catherine. And so in my head, I always thought that PR was just some, people who sent out press releases every once in a while. But PR is so much more than that. It's really, if you want to boil it down to its, most fundamental core, it's about informing people outside of your organization. So there's a lot of outreach, there's a lot of education, there's a lot of collaboration. There's so much that you can do as a wedding or creative professional in this space. And, it's also your submissions, right? Like that's technically PR.
That's right.
But having these kinds of documents on hand, to me at this point, these are essential brand documents. So if I'm ever meeting someone, and I continue to send these assets out now, because as I continue to meet people who need to be educated, I have something that's already prepared that I can send them, as opposed to, needing to extend the conversation or possibly let it go cold. Like I want to have something that I can turn around immediately, especially if there's someone who's interested in, collaborating or, bringing us on for a sponsorship or whatever that might be. You want to act quickly.
That's right. I wanted to shine a light on something else that you said when you were, previous to doing, or, kind of simultaneously, I imagine, as you were putting together your PR strategy and your PR list, you were also doing your marketing strategy. And something you said stuck out to me a lot. And that was that you said realistic strategy.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I am an extremely realistic person. I get this from my dad. And I think one of the biggest challenges that a small business owner faces is not knowing how to rein themselves in. And, because, when we started this conversation, we talked about, why it feels different when it's your business. And some of that is there's this sense of urgency. And for me, I definitely at times feel very impatient. But you can't let that impatience or urgency make you feel like you are obligated to do everything all of the time or be everything to everyone, because you will fail if you approach things that way. I mean, you will fail, you will be disappointed. It starts this whole emotional cycle where you're just like, I'm not good at this and I should stop. So if you set yourself up with a realistic plan that you have the resources to execute on, or, even if you have to do some outsourcing, you have the contacts to get it done, then you're going to actually be successful, and you're going to it does the exact opposite. You get psyched on seeing what you're doing. So, there's even when I talk about what Sourced Co could be, I have, Sourced Co was never just supposed to be styled stock photography. I've always had, there's at least 5 or 6 different things that I see this growing into, but no, there's not a reality where I would be able, or the entire team would be able to execute on 5 different revenue models simultaneously, right? You have to start somewhere. So it's about getting your sea legs, getting comfortable, knowing what you can actually handle, and then when the time comes, you can then build upon that. So I will always, I think that's one of the reasons why I still do marketing consulting.
Right.
And, whenever people work with me to put together strategies, most of the time they're pretty surprised at how straightforward it is. I don't put together a complicated document, because if it's complicated, everyone just gets scared, including me. Oh my God, can we just keep this real simple? So it's just all about the likelihood of you succeeding, right? And if it's big and ugly and scary, it's in human nature to just retreat and run away. So everyone should just do themselves a favor. You create a realistic strategy with realistic goals and expectations. And then once you start knocking those things out, then you can add more to your plate. But our eyes are always bigger than our stomachs a lot of times.
Oh, that food reference though.
I know, right? I was like, oh, that's something my dad always
so
used
good
to
though.
say, so.
It's so right. It's so
Shout
accurate.
Out,
Dad.
Your eyes are bigger than your stomach. But
Every time.
Every time.
And you know what? I say this a lot on the podcast, and I say it to a lot, mostly because I say it to myself when I'm like, ooh, maybe I should buy another subscription. And I was actually just recently talking about this, and the tool doesn't make us successful. And it doesn't equal productivity. It doesn't equal output. And so I know that everyone's like Trello and what's Asana, and I promise, I think they're great. If those really actually do work for you to plan your content and all of that, phenomenal. But honestly, sometimes you could just put it on a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet, and that's free.
100%. I mean, you don't even want to see how many tabs I have open, because I've got my hands in so many things. So it's each one of the businesses or projects that I work on have their own project management systems and, all that kind of stuff. And it can totally do the opposite for you. If you have to click through 1,000 different tabs to constantly be checking things or, whatever, I just live my life by the keep it simple, stupid frame of mind. Again, realistic, simple, and I actually might have a shot of getting it done, because most of us are also very time poor people. So you can't expect that if you set up a complicated set of operations for yourself that you're going to get it done quickly. So, that's a whole nother conversation. Streamlining your system.
Really is. I wonder, so you hashed out your marketing strategy, which included being realistic about what you could achieve. What has been one of the things that has helped you grow Sourced in these last 8 months? One or two, like what are the biggest things, I guess? They don't have to be big, but impactful rather. Yeah. That's a better word.
Instagram has been fantastic.
Okay.
I can't lie about that. A lot of people have, especially since we launched our styling blocks, a lot of people, when we talk to them, just via DM or whatever, they say, we just found your stuff on Instagram. And so, that's a combination of the hashtags we're using, but then I think also, which this is one of those things that like, you never know if it's happening, but if your content is getting put in the explore tab for other people, because all of our explore tabs are different. But it definitely has been the platform that has exposed us to the biggest geographic area. So like one of the first people to buy our styling blocks was in Canada, like in Toronto. And then a few days later, we had another planner in Toronto. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything in Toronto. Like there's no paid advertising. I'm not like geotagging anything. So to a certain extent, there are some inexplicable things about whatever Instagram is, whatever favors they're throwing our way. But it definitely has been an impactful platform. The other one is, it would kind of be a toss-up between just PR outreach and SEO.
Ooh, SEO. I love that.
Yeah. Because, when it comes to search engine optimization and, the keywords and key phrases that you're coming up with, if you know the niche that you're trying to get into, then, you can gain a lot of ground very quickly. And, it's not like we're going after a huge and competitive keyword like, wedding planning. Right. If you Google wedding planning, The Knot and Wedding Wire are like the only things that are going to show up. And Martha Stewart. Like, don't even
Martha
try.
Stewart.
Yeah, don't even try. But because of our product, and we had more success on the SEO front with the styling blocks than stock photography or styled stock, because those are pretty competitive words, which we're making grounds in. But acrylic styling blocks, or just the phrase styling blocks, we're consistently in the number 1 or number 2 in return slots for both of those phrases because they're so niche. So that's why when people in general, when they're talking about marketing and really knowing exactly who your ideal client is and serving them and being able to communicate to that like very narrow audience, that for sure should be part of your marketing strategy, in addition to knowing like broad strokes, what's your total addressable market. I feel like I just got real like nerdy on the marketing front with
no, not at all.
Addressable market.
Nope. I think this is good stuff. And what's interesting about these strategies is that while they can become, complicated and quote nerdy, that they're also easy and we can all do them.
Yeah.
We can all do better on SEO. We can all put together a PR list. We can all reach out to other people who maybe don't know our business yet that we want to introduce to our business. We can all use Instagram consistently and in a way that's valuable and impactful. And so I appreciate that these are the strategies you're using to grow this business from the ground up. I did have a question. I want to back up just a little bit. Yeah. I know that Myrna is your friend. And she, if you guys don't remember, Myrna is the one that Tayler hired to help her with SEO. How would you just recommend, if we don't all have SEO friends, darn it, how would you recommend finding an SEO professional?
Well, I actually met Myrna at the Creative at Heart conference when Catherine and I went into 2017.
Ooh, sweet.
Yeah. So
we love Creative at Heart here on the show.
I know. I feel like this is such a shout out episode. But shout out to Creative at Heart for connecting me with Myrna.
You're like Oprah. You get a shout out. You get a shout out.
Everybody gets a shout out. To be honest, I don't know most of the SEO people that I know are like tech SEO because my husband is a technologist. So I think through osmosis, I've learned quite a bit. I also read a lot of really dry SEO books back in the day. But, SEO is also one of those things that has this reputation of being a big, scary monster, and it's not. Yeah, that's right. It's really not. It's really, really not. I wish I could, if there's some way that I can share, I have a whole like SEO cheat sheet that I put together quite a long time ago. But there are
Would you like to share it with this audience?
I would love to. If I can do that, if I can send it to you and then somehow we can like put it somewhere for them to download 100%.
Yeah. Send me a PDF and I'll put it in these show notes.
Totally. Perfect. Because it's really just about knowing the words and knowing where to put them. So you do the hard work is in the research side or on the research side of this. And then once you've done that, it's very cut and dry to implement, especially most of us have Squarespace websites, right? Or, on Show It or some sort of user-friendly content management system. Pretty much nowadays, most of us can't afford to, hire someone to build us a custom website, nor is it totally necessary.
That's right.
So when you're using a content management system like Squarespace or Show It or WordPress, you have the ability to just go in there and make these changes. And if you have a solid plan of attack, then you could go in there and within, 30 minutes, make some pretty significant strides in upping your SEO game. So, I wish I had more tangible advice about how to find an SEO expert. I will say that I'm always weary of people who approach you saying that they're an expert about things.
Good call.
Especially if their hourly rate seems really high. So,
just say no, folks.
Just say no and Google it instead. But yeah, so I really do wish that I had more recommendations, but Myrna is great. And especially for people who are wedding industry professionals, like she pretty much exclusively works with people in the wedding industry. And she works with some really big, wedding dress designers. And, we definitely brought her on for pretty regular consulting at Aisle Planner. So she knows her shit. And so I hope I've just given her a glowing review and that all of you are going to flood her inboxes. But
I hope you are too. I'm going to have to find her contact information on the internet. Yeah. It will also be in the show notes, everybody.
Yes, I know. We're just gonna make sure that everyone knows about her.
That's right.
But yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's not complicated. Don't be scared about it. And you just need to find someone who, you feel like you can trust and who actually understands what your goals are, because it's not scary, but it could be a bigger project than you actually need it to be. So again, realism. Just be realistic.
Absolutely. That's realistic. And I wish I would have written this down. You just said something that just articulated it so well. And it was like 4 words. It was like, find the words you want and put them in the places they need to be or something.
Yeah.
I think, that's exactly. And I said, oh yeah, that doesn't seem hard.
No, it's not hard. And once you know the places that you need to put them, then, then it's easy. But, like quick tip for everyone, a lot of people on their websites, when they're describing their services, they've got just one service page that just kind of like runs through the whole gamut. But one of the key places to have an SEO keyword is in the URL, because that's, when Google is trolling the internet and trying to index everything and figure out what information is where, they're looking at a couple different places, but the URL is definitely one of those flags that you want to have put on your website. So instead of having one page that covers all of your services, in your main menu have, services, and then there should be sub-pages for the different types. So, on SourceCo, we've got we got a little kitschy with our word choice, but we have sourced for, and then there's social media, websites, publications. And so, now the internet knows that when it's trying to find stock photography for social media use, Like we've got that URL there. So in, the world of a wedding planner, it's like, you have services and then you have full service or month of and that kind of thing. So that's your SEO tip for the day.
That's a great one. And it's so, you can really dive deep and become a hero on that. Then you're not trying to encompass, wedding planner, I'm also a designer. Also, I have rentals.
Yes.
Put those in on 3 pages so that you can just, of course, not keyword stuff, but, really
you can tell the full story. Yeah. You need to
just articulated that so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to give yourself like the room to tell the full story. And if you're trying to cram it all onto one page, then, it can make you look like, a little like frantic or scattered. Even if you, present it in the most eloquent way, if you just give yourself a little bit of white space, that's always a good thing.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of white space.
Absolutely.
So
tell me, as we wrap up here, Taylor, we've covered a lot. We've covered making a PR list. We've covered dig into SEO. It is still viable. It is still valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Dig into Instagram. We all are. I think we're all just trying to figure out how Instagram works for us. What's something that you would leave us with as far as growing your business?
Oh, that's a deep question.
I know.
So deep. What would I
honestly, even if it's just like something super tactical, I know that we would love that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be philosophical either.
Thank you for relieving me from needing to like be Play-Doh at the moment.
You're welcome.
Oh man. There's so many things swirling through my head at the moment. I think that when it comes to building a business, one of the things that I think everyone needs to be okay with is feeling uncomfortable. Because when you feel uncomfortable, that's usually the space where you're growing, right? Like it can either make you grow emotionally because you're learning how to deal with anxiety or discomfort. But also when you're not feeling comfortable, to me, that's what gets the wheels turning. And that's when innovation happens. It's not like innovation out of desperation, but when you're uncomfortable, you start to look at things differently. And so I think it's really important for people to not always stay in their comfort zone or even always stay in their lane, right? Like my business partners and I, even though we all know where we are strongest and can contribute the most, all bounce around into everyone else's vertical because we all ask for help, which is, an important thing to do. So, if I pull Cassie into marketing all the time, and all of a sudden this like introvert she's out there like pounding the pavement, looking up, like doing all this outreach and like, hey, we should really go to this event, like all this kind of stuff.
Nice.
So, like you can grow as a person, as a professional, as a collaborator, as a business person, when you allow yourself to not always feel great. So, that's kind of, I think that's one of the things that I want everyone around me to be okay with, because, being a business owner is hard work and it's not always going to be smooth sailing. And in order to build, again, that sustainable business that has a legacy, you're going to have to weather challenges, and you're only going to weather them if you're okay with being in it. So
that's right. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep. All the time. Don't like let yourself stew in it. Try to get out of it when you're in it.
Yeah, we don't want you like anxiety ridden. That's not what we're saying.
No. But also therapy is great. Like if you can be on the monthly maintenance plan, like go be on the monthly maintenance plan. I think it's great. So, right. But yeah, there's being a business owner is one of the most like fulfilling and challenging and interesting things I've ever done. And I'm so thankful to just have the most amazing network of people who continually inspire me. I mean, like people like you, Kinsey, even if it's just like being silly about our big dangly earrings, stuff
That's
like
right.
that. Like
big earring soul sisters, you guys.
Yes. But it's just, I just feel so lucky to have such an amazing network. And I mean, I hope that everyone else finds their tribe, and whether you're going at it alone or you have partners, that, you just go out there and know that you can do some cool shit to drop.
That's right. Get it done.
Yep.
Tayler, thank you so much for being here again. We are going to do a part 2 where we're going to dive in all the way deep into content marketing, which I cannot wait for. As we know, you used to be the editor-in-chief of Aisle Planner. Now you're the editor-in-chief of your own business. So, And you do some client work too. I don't know how you did it. You do it all, but we're going to dive deep into part 2 with Tayler. I cannot wait for that very near future episode. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an honor to host you, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me again, Kinsey. And I'm so excited that all of you decided to spend a little bit of time with the two of us.
Thanks, Tayler.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.